Managing your research project. The pre-writing you have completed so far has helped you to begin to plan the content of your research paper, your topic, research questions, and preliminary thesis. It is equally important to plan out the process of researching and writing the paper. Although some types of writing assignments can be completed relatively quickly, developing a good research paper is a complex process that takes time. Breaking it into manageable steps is crucial. Review the steps outlined at the beginning of this chapter. Choose a topic. Schedule and plan time for research and writing. Conduct research. Organize research. Draft your paper. Revise and edit your paper. You have completed step 1. In this section, you will complete step 2. The remaining steps fall under 2 broad categories: the research phase, the project, and the writing phase. Both phases present challenges. Understanding the task involved and allowing enough time to complete each task will help you complete your research paper on time with minimal amount of stress. And so the research phase, steps 3 and 4, that's conduct research and organize research, and the writing phase, which is draft your paper and revise and edit your paper. Each step of a research project requires time and attention. Careful planning helps ensure that you will keep your project running smoothly and produces your best work. Set up a project schedule that shows when you will complete each step. Think about how you will complete each step and what project resources you will use. Resources may include anything from library databases and word processing software to interview subjects and writing tutors. To develop your schedule, use a calendar and work backwards from the date your final draft is due. Generally, it is wise to develop half of the available time on the research phase and the other half on the writing phase. For example, if you have a month to work on your paper, plan for 2 weeks of writing phase and 2 weeks of research phase. As you plan, break down major steps into smaller tasks if necessary. For example, step 3, conducting research, involves locating potential sources, evaluating their usefulness and reliability, reading and taking notes. Defining these smaller steps makes the project more manageable by giving you concrete goals to achieve. Plan your schedule realistically and consider other commitments that may sometimes take precedence. A business trip or family visit may mean that you are unable to work on the research project for a few days. Make the most of the time you have available. Plan for unexpected interruptions, but keep in mind that a short time away from the project may help you come back to it with renewed enthusiasm. Another strategy many writers find helpful is to finish each day's work at a point when the next task is an easy one. That makes it easier to start again. So when you create a project schedule at work, you set target dates for completing certain tasks and identify the resources you plan to use on the project. It is important to build in some flexibility. Materials may not be received on time because of a shipping delay. An employee on your team may be called away to work on a higher priority project. Essential equipment may malfunction. You should always plan for the unexpected. Always, setting up a schedule is easy. Sticking to one is challenging. Even if you are the rare person who never procrastinates, unforeseen events may interfere with your ability to complete tasks on time. A self-imposed deadline may slip your mind despite your best intentions. Organizational tools like calendars and checklists and note cards, so forth, can help you stay on track. Organize project documents in a binder or electronic folder and label project documents and folders clearly. Use note cards or an electronic document to record bibliographical information for each source you plan to use in your paper. Tracking this information throughout the research process can save you hours of time. Anticipating challenges. Do any of these scenarios sound familiar? You have identified a book that would be a great resource for your project, but it is currently checked out at the library. Or you plan to interview a subject matter expert on your topic, but she calls to reschedule your meeting. These troubling solutions are all too common. No matter how carefully you plan your schedule, you may encounter a glitch or setback. Managing your project effectively means anticipating potential problems. Many times, a situation becomes a problem due only to the lack of planning. You can manage other potential problems by staying organized and maintaining a take-charge attitude. Key takeaways. To complete a research project successfully, a writer must carefully manage each phase of the process and break major steps into smaller tasks. Writers can plan a research project by setting up a schedule based on the deadline and by identifying useful project resources. Writers stay focused by using organizational tools that suit their needs. Anticipating and planning for potential setbacks can help writers avoid those setbacks or minimize their effect on the project schedule. Strategies for gathering reliable information. Distinguish between primary and secondary sources. Identify strategies for locating print and electronic sources. Identify instances when it is appropriate to use human sources, such as interviews or eyewitness testimony. Now that you have planned your research project, you are ready to begin the research. This phase can be both exciting and challenging. Of course, the technological advances of the past few decades, particularly the rise of online media, means that as a 21st century student, you have countless sources of information available at your fingertips. But how can you tell whether a source is reliable? In this section, you will locate and evaluate resources for your paper and begin taking notes. As you read, begin gathering print and electronic resources. Identify at least 8 to 10 sources by the time you finish the chapter and begin taking notes on your research findings. When you choose a paper topic and determine your research question, you conducted preliminary research to stimulate your thinking. Your research proposal or your paper outline included some general ideas for how to go about your research. Using primary and secondary sources. Writers classify research resources in 2 categories, primary and secondary sources. Primary sources are direct, first-hand sources of information or data. For example, if you were writing a paper about the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, the text of the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights would be a primary source. Other primary sources include the following: research articles, literary texts, historical documents such as diaries or letters, autobiographies, or other personal accounts. Secondary sources discuss, interpret, analyze, consolidate, or otherwise rework information from primary sources. In researching a paper about the First Amendment, you might read articles about legal cases that involve First Amendment rights, or editorials expressing commentary on the First Amendment. These sources would be considered secondary sources because they are one step removed from the primary source of information. The following are examples of secondary sources: magazine articles, biographical books, literary and scientific reviews, television documentaries. Your topic and purpose determines whether you must cite both. Your topic and purpose determine whether you must cite both secondary and primary sources in your paper. Ask yourself which sources are most likely to provide the information that will answer your research questions. If you are writing a research paper about reality TV shows, you will need to use some reality shows as a primary source, but secondary sources such as a reviewer's critique are also important. Once you have thought about what kinds of sources are most likely to help answer your research questions, you may begin your search for print and electronic sources. The challenge here is to conduct your research efficiently. And so here you have different kinds of sources. You have reference works. Reference works provide a summary of information about a particular topic. Almanacs, encyclopedias, atlases, medical reference books, and scientific abstracts are examples of reference works, and in some cases, reference books may not be checked out of a library. Nonfiction books. Nonfiction books provide in-depth coverage of a topic. Trade books, biographies, and how-to guides are usually written for a general audience. Scholarly books and scientific studies are usually written for an audience that has specialized knowledge of a topic. Periodicals. These sources are published at regular intervals, daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. Newspapers, magazines, and academic journals are examples of periodicals. Some periodicals provide articles on subjects of general interest, while others are more specialized. So that's periodicals and news sources. Government publications. Federal, state, and local government agencies publish information on a variety of topics. Government publications include reports, legislation, court documents, public records, statistics, studies, guides, programs, and forms. Business and nonprofit publications. Business and nonprofit organizations produce publications designed to market a product, provide background about the organization, provide information on topics connected to the organization, or promote a cause. These publications include reports, newsletters, advertisements, manuals, brochures, and other print documents. Some of these resources are widely available in an electronic format. In addition to the resources noted in the table, library holdings may include primary texts such as historical documents, letters, and diaries. And so here are some examples of reference works. The World Almanac, Book of Facts, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual published by the American Psychiatric Association. Examples of nonfiction books: The Low Carbohydrate Solution, A Slimmer You in 30 Days, Carbohydrates, Fats, Proteins, Exploring the Relationship Between Macronutrient Ratios and Health Outcomes. Examples of periodicals and news sources: New York Times, PC Magazine, JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. Examples of government publications: the Census 2000 Profile, the Business Relocation Package, published by the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. Examples of business and nonprofit publications: a company's instruction manual explaining how to use specific software program. A news release published by the Sierra Club. So that's all examples of business and nonprofit publications. Businesses, government organizations, and nonprofit organizations produce published materials that range from brief advertisements and brochures to lengthy, detailed reports. In many cases, producing these publications require research. A corporation's annual report may include research about economic or industry trends. A charitable organization may use information from research in materials sent to potential donors. Regardless of the industry you work in, you may be asked to assist in developing materials for publication. Often incorporating research in these documents can make them more effective in informing or persuading readers. Tip: as you gather information, strive for a balance of accessible, easy-to-read sources and more specialized, challenging sources. Relying solely on lightweight books and articles written for a general audience will drastically limit the range of useful, substantial information. On the other hand, restricting oneself to dense, scholarly works could make the process of researching extremely time-consuming and frustrating. To find print sources effectively, first identify the major concepts and terms you will use to conduct your sources, that is, your keywords. Those, along with the research questions you identify, will help you find sources using any of the following methods: using the library's online catalog or card catalog, using periodical indexes and databases, consulting a reference librarian. You probably have some keywords in mind based on your preliminary research and writing. Another way to identify useful keywords is to visit the Library of Congress website. This site allows you to search for a topic and see the related subject headings used by the Library of Congress, including broader terms, narrower terms, and related terms. Other libraries use these terms to classify materials. Knowing the most used terms will help you speed up your keyword search. Knowing the right keywords can sometimes make all the difference in conducting a successful search. If you have trouble finding sources on a topic, consult a librarian to see whether you need to modify your search terms. Using periodicals, indexes, and databases. Library catalogs can help you locate book-length sources, as well as some types of non-print holdings such as CDs, DVDs, and audio books. To locate shorter sources such as magazines and journal articles, you will need to use a periodical index or an online periodical database. These tools index the articles that appear in newspapers, magazines, and journals. Like catalogs, they provide publication information about an article and often allow users to access a summary or even the full text of the article. Print indexes may be available in the periodical section of your library. Increasingly, librarians use online databases that users can access through the library website. A single library may provide access to multiple periodical databases. These can range from general news databases to specialized databases. Here are some examples of database: New York Times Index, print, Guide to Articles published in the New York Times, ProQuest, online, database that archives content from newspapers, magazines, and dissertations, PsycLit, PsycInfo, online, databases that archive content from journals in psychology and psychiatry, Business Source Complete, online, database that archives business-related content from magazines and journals, Medline, PubMed, online, databases that archive articles in medicine and health, EBSCOhost, online, general database that provides access to articles on a wide variety of topics, reading popular and scholarly periodicals. When you search for periodicals, be sure to distinguish among many types. Mass market publications such as newspapers and popular magazines differ from scholarly publications in their accessibility, audience, and purpose. Newspapers and magazines are written for a broader audience than scholarly journals. Their content is usually quite accessible and easy to read. Trade magazines that target readers within a certain industry may presume the reader has background information, but these publications are still reader-friendly for a broader audience. Their purpose is to inform and often to entertain or persuade readers as well. Scholarly or academic journals are written for a much smaller and more expert audience. The creators of these publications assume that most of their readers are already familiar with the main topic of the journal. The target audience is highly educated and experts. Informing is the primary purpose of a scholarly journal. While a journal article may advance an agenda or advocate a position, the content will still be presented in an objective style and formal tone. Entertaining readers with breezy comments and splashy graphics is not a priority. Because of these differences, scholarly journals are more challenging to read. That doesn't mean you should avoid them. On the contrary, they can provide in-depth information unavailable elsewhere. Because knowledgeable professionals carefully review the content before publication, scholarly journals are far more reliable than much of the information available in popular media. And these are called peer-reviewed articles. Seek out academic journals along with other resources. Just be prepared to spend a little more time processing the information. Periodical databases are not just for students writing research papers. They also provide a valuable service to workers in various fields. The owner of a small business might use a database such as Business Source Premier to find articles on management, finance, or trends within a particular industry. Healthcare professionals might consult databases such as Medline to research a particular disease or medication. Regardless of what career path you plan to pursue, periodical databases can be a useful tool for researching specific topics and identifying periodicals that will help you keep up with the latest news. Sifting through library stacks and database search results to find the information you need can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And so reference librarians are intimately familiar with systems libraries. So if you get lost in a library, go to the librarian for help. I've done that a lot. So one way to refine your keyword search is to use Boolean operators. These operators allow you to combine keywords, find variations on a word, and otherwise expand or limit your results. Here are some of the ways you can use Boolean operators. Combine keywords with and or plus sign to limit results to citations. Combine keywords with not, for, minus to search for the first word without the second. Enclose a phrase in quotation marks in search for an exact phrase, such as morbid obesity. Use parentheses to direct the order of operations in a search or string. Use a wildcard symbol, such as a slash, quotation mark, and $sign. Offer a word to search for variations on a term. With the expansion of technology and media over the past few decades, a wealth of information is available to you in electronic format. Online databases, popular website searches, newspapers, magazines, journals, ebooks, audiobooks, industry blogs, radio and television programs, and online discussion groups. The techniques you use to locate print resources can help you find electronic sources efficiently. Libraries usually include audiobooks, audio and video recordings among their holdings. You can locate these materials in the catalog using a keyword search. Using internet search engines efficiently. When faced with the challenge of writing a research paper, some students may rely on popular search engines as their first source of information. So if you use something like Google, you should use Google Scholar because Google Scholar has peer-reviewed sources. Google, on the other hand, does not always come up with reliable sources. So if you use Google, for instance, results do not always appear in the order of reliability. Results may be too numerous for you to use. Search engines are not connected to the results of the search. It's always better to use the library databases than to use the internet, because the internet can return sources that are not very reliable, or it can be mixed in with a lot of ads. And you don't want to use any sources that's some kind of advertisement. And so you should use Google Scholar. Limit results to websites that have been updated. So this is how you could tell if you have a credible source, because you only use credible sources for your paper. Limit results to websites that have been updated within a particular time frame, and I always say within the last 10 years. Limit results by language or country. Limit results to scholarly works available online, Google Scholar. Limit results by file type. Limit results to particular domain types such as .edu, .gov, and this is a quick way to filter out commercial sites, which can often lead to more objective results. So you stay away from ads, advertisements, because that's not, very credible. With so many print and electronic sources available, it is easy to overlook another valuable resource, other people. Consider whether you could use a person or group as a primary source. For instance, you might interview a professor who has expertise in a particular subject, a worker within a particular industry, or a representative from a political organization. Interviews can be a great way to get first-hand information. To get the most out of an interview, you will need to plan ahead, Contact your subject early in the research process and explain your purpose for requesting an interview. Prepare detailed questions. Open-ended questions rather than questions with simple yes or no answers are more likely to lead to an in-depth discussion. Schedule a time to meet and be sure to obtain your subject's permission to record the interview. Take careful notes and be ready to ask follow-up questions based on what you learn. As you gather sources, you will need to examine them with a critical eye. Smart researchers continually ask themselves two questions. Is this source relevant to my purpose? Is this source reliable? At this point in your research process, you may have identified dozens of potential sources. It is easy for writers to get so caught up in checking out books that they forget to ask themselves how they will use these sources in their research. So it's tips for skimming books. Read the dust jacket, table of contents. Use the index to locate more specific topics. Flip through the book and look for subtitles. Tips for skimming articles. Skim the introduction and conclusion. Skim through subheadings and text features such as sidebars. Look for key words. Journal articles often begin with an abstract, so read the abstract. All information sources are not created equal, and so sources can vary greatly in terms of how carefully they are researched or written. And so you will need to use critical thinking skills in order to tell if whether it's reliable or not. So evaluating types of sources. Evaluate how thoroughly the writer covers a given topic, how carefully the writer researches and documents facts. Evaluate how editors review the work, and look for biases or agendas that affect the content. This is especially true for advertisements, in which it slants towards you got to buy the product. So high quality sources, the scholarly books and articles in scholarly journals, trade books and magazines geared toward an educated general audience, such as the Smithsonian, government documents such as books, reports, and web pages, documents posted online by reputable organizations such as universities and research institutes, textbooks and reference books which are usually reliable but may not cover a topic in great detail, varied quality sources. These sources are often useful, however, they do not cover subjects in much detail as high-quality sources, and they are not always rigorously researched and reviewed. Some such as popular magazine articles or company brochures may be written to market a product or a cause. Use them with caution. That's why I tell students not to use ads. News stories and feature articles, so varied quality sources are news stories and feature articles from reputable newspapers or organizations such as Newsweek, popular magazine articles which may or may not be carefully researched and fact-checked, documents published by businesses and non-profit organizations. So these are all varied quality sources. Questionable sources like Wikipedia or ChatGPT. These sources should be avoided. They are often written primarily to attract a large readership or to present the author's opinion and are not subject to careful review. Loosely regulated or unregulated media content such as internet discussion boards, blogs, free online encyclopedias a la Wikipedia, talk radio shows, television shows with obvious political biases, personal websites, and chat rooms. Free online encyclopedias and wikis like Wikipedia may seem like a great source of information, but anybody can upload anything to those websites, and these sites have no control system for researching, writing, and reviewing articles. So that's why I tell students not to use Wikipedia. Even when you are using a type of source that is generally reliable, you will still need to evaluate the author's credibility and the publication itself on an individual basis. To examine an author's credibility, that is, how much you can believe of what the author has to say, examine his or her credentials. What career experience or academic study shows that the author has the expertise to write about the topic? Just as important as the author's credibility is the publication's overall credibility. Reputability refers to a source's standing and reputation as a respectable, reliable source of information. If you are using articles from scholarly sources, you can keep count of how many times each article has been cited in other articles. And that shows that it's like if it's peer-reviewed article, that's the most reliable source you can use. Bias. Bias refers to favoritism or prejudice toward a particular person or group. For instance, an author may be biased against a certain political party and present information in a way that subtly, or not so subtly, makes that organization look bad. Bias can lead an author to present facts selectively, edit quotations to misrepresent someone's words, and distort information. So you have to watch out for bias. And you have to watch out for hidden agendas, are goals that are not immediately obvious, but influence how an author presents the facts. For instance, an article about the role of beef in a healthy diet would be questionable if it were written by a representative of the beef industry or by the president of an animal rights organization. In both cases, the author would likely have a hidden agenda. So most ads or advertisements have a hidden agenda because they want you to buy their product. Using current sources. Make sure that you use current sources within 10 years. Always look at the dates. And so here are some questions that you can ask yourself whether or not a source is reliable or not. So always look through this entire checklist to make sure that the source is appropriate and credible. So is the type of source appropriate? Can I establish that the author is credible? Does the author support ideas with specific facts and details that are carefully documented? Does the source include any factual errors? Does the author leave out any information that I would expect to see in a document of this topic? Is the writing clear and organized? Are there obvious biases or agendas? Is the source contradicted by information found in other sources? And so keeping track of your sources, you can have something called a working bibliography. That is a preliminary source of lists of a working bibliography is a preliminary list of sources that you will later use to develop the reference section of your paper. You may wish to record information using the formatting system of APA, which will save a step later on. So that's like taking notes about all your sources. And I used to do it on index cards just to keep track of them all and write a little like summary on index cards. Of course, this was before they had internet. So details for commonly used source types: book, author, title, subtitle, publisher, city of publication, year of publication. Essay or article. Include all the information you would for any other article. Additionally, record the essay's article title, author, the pages on which it appears, and the name of the book's editor. Periodical. So you have the author, article title. This is all for your reference citation. Okay, so how do you cite your sources? You have your author name, then you have the author's first name, last name, the date, the article name, the publication name, and then the date you retrieved the website and the web address. So that's pretty much the only one that's different is if you're doing an interview. Then you have the name of the person interviewed, method of communication, date of interview. And so both APA and MLA have a certain way. I think you write the person's name, then you write personal communication, and then you write the date. That's how you write for an interview for APA, off the top of my head. And you need to take notes. And if you take a lot of notes, the more notes you take, the more you can keep track of your different your different sources. Summary notes sums up the main ideas in a source in a few sentences or short paragraph. A summary is considerably shorter than the original text and captures only the major ideas. Use summary notes when you do not need to record specific details, but you intend to refer to broad concepts the author discusses. Paraphrase notes. Restates a fact or idea from a source, using your own words and sentence structure. Direct quotation. Use the exact wording used by the original source and enclose the quoted material in quotation marks. It is a good strategy to copy direct quotes when an author expresses an idea in an especially lively or memorable way. And so use a system that works for you. Use index cards, use note-taking software, maintain a research notebook, annotate your sources. Key takeaways. A writer can use primary or secondary sources in their paper. They can use print sources such as books, electronic sources such as websites, and human sources of information such as interviews. And strategies that help writers locate sources include conducting effective keyword sources and understanding how to use online catalogs and databases. Writers evaluate sources based on how relevant they are to the research question. Skimming sources can help writers determine the relevance of the source, and writers evaluate a source's reliability by asking questions about the type of source, the author's credibility, the publication reputability, the source currency, and the overall quality of the writing, research, logic, and design in the source. So, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time. And if you like this video, you can subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel.